Hello, Seattle. Good evening. Welcome to Ignite Seattle 32. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to see you all. How are you doing? That is a fantastic answer. Ignite is a special thing. I will explain to you, for those of you who haven't been here before, what Ignite actually is. Actually, how many of you have never been to Ignite Seattle before? Please raise your hand. New people. Excellent. Excellent. Fantastic. Good to know you have faith and trust in what we're going to do to you tonight. How many of you have been to more than one Ignite? Raise your hand. Excellent. Fantastic. I see a few people raise their hand both times. That's the standard opening MC joke that I use. Only the people who've been here more than once know that's my standard joke. So my job, I'm Scott Burke, I'm your MC for the night. My job is to get you warmed up, explain to you how it works, help the speakers do a great job, which they will, and do housekeeping. So there's a few things I need to do to make sure the house is in order. So let me just look around. A few of you are wearing red. That is fantastic. Those are our official colors. But I have a problem. My problem is that there's some empty seats in the front. And that means a lot of you have not been here before. So people who sit in the first two rows get drink tickets. So I have 4 empty seats. If you'd like, actually 6 empty seats. You can come forward. One, yeah, come on up, come forward. Yes, give those out. We actually have a couple more here. Yes, we're Seattle here. We are liberal about 2 more over there. Fantastic. Excellent. And we know the people who depend on this for their beer budget, they show up early and get the front seats. So we are good and set up there. Fantastic. So, the main thing about Ignite is to give you an evening of all sorts of different ideas and points of views and stories. Some are funny, some are serious, some we don't know what to call them. Some you will like, some you won't. Some will change your mind, some will reinforce an idea you already have. And part of the value of the night is there are very few places you can go and get an evening that puts so much of the opportunity on you to kind of figure it out for yourself. Now, one thing that I will do to orient you, it's part of the Ignite tradition, is the first Ignite talk of the evening is done by the MC. It's an Ignite talk that explains how Ignite works. So without further ado, unless there's any housekeeping that I have forgotten, did I forget any housekeeping? Larry, Justin, Brian, anybody? We're all good? Okay, housekeeping is good. I will now do the opening Ignite talk. All right, very good. Ignite started in 2006 here in Seattle. Bray Pettis and Brady Forrest came up with this idea. They wanted an evening of talks that were short and fast and lively, unlike most public speaking events. We started at Capitol Hill Arts Center, which is gone. We moved to King Cat Theater, which is gone. We've arrived here at Town Hall, which has been here for 100 years. Amazing building. We're happy to be here. They do all kinds of great stuff. They'll be renovating soon, but until then, check out their calendar and come for other events. Ignite, the format itself, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, it's a popular format because it helps people stimulate their thinking and present ideas in different ways. It's a format used around the world. There's Ignite events in many cities. Sometimes they're about topics, sometimes they're not. The format itself, 5 minutes, 20 slides, 15 seconds a slide. The speakers have the unusual advantage or disadvantage. The slides are automated. They're not in control of their own material, which is really hard. So one thing, and public speaking is hard enough, this is sort of an advanced version of that. The way the format works, we are the largest open submission public speaking event in the Northwest, possibly the nation. Anyone can submit an Ignite talk. If you're frustrated tonight, you're like, why didn't they talk about X or Y? You have the opportunity to submit a talk and be on stage next time. Now, one thing I have to ask of you as the audience, this is high-skilled public speaking you're going to see. You are sitting there with a beer in your hand and watching. Your job is to cheer them on. Be enthusiastic. Be glad you're in the audience. Will you do that? Cheer them on. Give them support. Fantastic. If they ask you to stand up or do a dance, do whatever they ask. They get stuck, cheer them on. Yell out something nice and positive. It's hard stuff. They practice hard. They deserve to get support. Now, we're an all-volunteer organization. We're not even really a nonprofit. We're all volunteers. We make this work because you have a good time and you tell other people. So if you have a moment tonight, you're waiting for a drink in the intermission, tweet about it. Post on Facebook. Tell other people you had fun and a good time that they should come to the next one. For all your friends who bailed on you, Send them a text message or a Facebook message. Say, you can live stream it, sucker, see what you missed. It's free. Anyone can watch it. We want the speakers to get their ideas out in the world. Live streaming helps that. Next Ignite is May 18th, a couple months away. Submissions for the next Ignite are open. We usually get about 50 to 60 submissions for each Ignite, only accept 16. So it's competitive. But we love the idea that anyone can pitch us. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be famous. As long as you're passionate about something, you have some insider knowledge that's uncommon, or you're good at telling stories, talk to us. Send us a submission. We want you to get up here on stage. Part of the values I mentioned before is the diversity of ideas and people you will see here. We think it's a unique thing. Very few events provide that much opportunity for anyone to share the stage. If you're afraid of public speaking, or you think, well, I'm passionate about this, but I don't have a degree in it, we don't really care. We think that you may have enough insight to be valuable and give a great story in 4 or 5 minutes. We provide coaching. We do speaker coaching, both general public speaking, but also for this format. We do everything we can to organize the event to give you a great experience as a speaker. Any former speakers here? We do a good job making you look good? Fantastic. Last housekeeping thing, 8 talks. Take a break, 25 minutes, get another drink, go to the bathroom, 8 more talks, night's over. That's the whole story, the whole show. You'll see a whole bunch of different things. I'll tell you, you'll see more about that in a second. I am the MC, but there are many organizers. I'm just the most visible one. If you see anyone wearing an Ignite badge, please thank them. We're all volunteering our time to put this event together and to help support the speakers do a great job. We do have a few sponsors, which I will tell you about. Techstars is our primary sponsor, most famous for Startup Weekend. They help provide a whole bunch of funding and support to make this event and Ignite Seattle continue in the future. Bootstrapper Studios, they do all of our video work. All the talks you're going to see will be online within a few days. Live streaming is also done by Bootstrapper. They do great work. If you have any video production needs, you should talk to them. They've been a reliable supporter and ally for us for years now. The last sponsor or support I want to mention, it's actually it's a alumni of Ignite Seattle. Monica Guzman is running a daily news service. They're trying to reinvent news. It's called Evergrey, and it's great. If you send an SMS to this, you'll get on their list automatically. You get it the next day. You can decide whether you like it or not. I think that you'll like it. Without further ado, thank you. That was the opening Ignite talk. Thank you very much. Now, I mentioned that talks are open submission, so we don't do a lot of pre-curation. We wait for the talks to come in, and we try to figure out how can we assemble a great evening out of this. And there's one theme that came up tonight, which is sort of coincidental, serendipitous, which we like, which has to do with our bodies. So our first talk, and as you will learn, we are very open-minded about the way we talk about things here. So you're going to hear a fantastic opening talk. Sarah Gensler is going to talk, well, actually, the title of her talk is Let's Talk About Menstruation. Please, round of applause for Sarah to come up on stage.
Hi, everyone. Please raise your hand if you or anyone you love has ever shed their uterine lining. Look around you. Great. Okay, I'm here to talk to you about why talking about menstruation started having me make good connections with unlikely people. And that started with a menstrual cup. A menstrual cup is a silicone vessel that you put into your vagina. It collects your menstrual fluid, and then you dump it out and you reuse it as an alternative to tampons or pads. It gets you real up close and personal with all of the bloody glory of your body. And my friend was adamant that I try to use one. And the way she convinced me was by telling me it is environmentally friendly to use a menstrual cup and also is cost effective. And I am deep in student debt. So I went for it. And it was disgusting. I was totally repulsed. I was totally repulsed, and I couldn't even use it for the first few months because I would try and it would freak me out, and then I'd put it away, and then I would shun it, and then I'd get it out again and start the whole cycle over again. And after a couple months of that, I took a step back and I started to question why that was happening. What's going on in my subconscious that was motivating this visceral reaction to my own biology? Because I can actually objectively look at a period as something cool and something beautiful, and I'm not afraid of blood, so what's my excuse? And if you are having those same kind of questions right now and feel uncomfortable with how I'm talking about this, think about how many people around you are raising their hands earlier and maybe start asking yourself those same questions. When I was processing those questions, I started writing about it. And I wrote a personal narrative detailing exactly what I just talked about with my menstrual cup, but also exploring those deeper questions of what's going on here. And I came to these conclusions, these sort of speculative conclusions about ingrained sexism and ideas like that are kind of penetrating my subconscious and motivating these feelings. And then I decided I needed to share that on a wider platform because I felt like if I didn't, I would be directly contradicting the whole idea, which is, why can't we talk about this? Let's please talk about menstruation. And it was really scary sharing that story on social media because I used really raw language like digitally penetrate myself and a confession about using 2 tampons at a time in high school. And in addition to that, this is 2 or 3 weeks after the presidential election, and everything that I would plug into social media felt just incredibly politically charged. And within that political conversation, everything felt deeply, deeply polarized, to such an extent that there were these 2 camps, and it was me voting for one candidate and everyone who did with me, and then this other camp where people voted for another candidate. And no matter what we posted, no matter how topical it felt incredibly, deeply political. So posting this felt really anxiety-provoking. I was totally overcome by this really shaky feeling of, what's going to happen? Are they going to, these people in this other camp, are they going to judge my raw encounter, my raw conclusions I came to? But then to my surprise, over the next few hours, a lot of positive feedback started rolling in. And it wasn't just from my close friends and family. It was from people from all levels of connectedness throughout my life who I hadn't talked to in years. Actually, my favorite comment came from someone who I would firmly place in the them category as far as political action on Facebook. I mean, they vocally supported the candidate I didn't vote for, and they wrote something on my wall saying, wow, I'm surprised. I didn't think I would like this, but I did. That's kind of the point, right? And it wasn't the point, but then it became the point because I realized that I had permission to start talking about this with more people. And I brought it up at networking events with people I hadn't even talked to before. And it went great, surprisingly. And I started a conversation with my dad about feminism and what that means to me, and it was wonderful. And then I started realizing that there was a bigger lesson here, and that's that there is a common human experience, that there's this wealth of human commonalities, that if we can tap it and we can really dig in there, that we can make connections with people that we never thought we could connect with. There's this human factor that I think if we acknowledge it and we don't let it fail to be a factor, we have power there. And I challenge you, and I challenge myself, to go into every interaction with that assumption that you have a connection with whoever you're talking to. But an even bigger challenge that I know that we can all handle is to actively seek out and reveal these human commonalities, this human factor, because I think it's becoming more and more important as we go forward in this political and social landscape together. And if you want to talk to me about anything, come up and talk to me afterward, of even periods or menstrual cups, because I'm sort of an expert on those now. And if you want to read my original story for any sort of inspiration as to how we can tap into these ideas and what people are receptive to, feel free to go to my Medium page and check it out. Thank you.
All right, good stuff. So following along one little stream you'll experience tonight about human biology and commonality, something else we all share is an intestinal system. So our next talk, Hannah Thomasy is going to talk about a gut feeling, the microbiome, and our health. Please welcome Hannah to the stage.
Wow. Okay. We usually think that our health is governed by our own choices and our own genetics. But today I'm going to be talking about how trillions of tiny organisms living inside of us actually play a huge role in our physical and even mental health. The microbiome is the genetic material of all of the organisms that live on and in us. It's mostly made of bacteria, but also includes viruses, archaea, and fungi. Just like the Earth has a lot of different environments where different plants and animals live, our body has a lot of environments where different types of microbes live. Microbes have colonized the entire surface of our skin, even the surface of our eyes. They live in our nose and mouth, our throat and lungs, and throughout our entire digestive tract. Even though microbes are probably important in all of the human systems in which they're found, the one I'm going to be talking about today is the gut microbiome, simply because that's the one we know the most about. We have trillions, if not hundreds of trillions of microbes and thousands of different species. This is the equivalent of carrying around a small dog with us all the time. We have about 2 to 6 pounds. We usually think that microbes are gross and disease-causing, and sometimes they are. But our gut microbes are really important in helping us be healthy. Gut microbes help us to digest our food. They produce vitamin B and vitamin K. And especially in infancy, they're really important for helping our immune system develop properly. In fact, gnotobiotic or microbe-free mice are actually much less healthy than mice that were raised with a normal complement of microbes. The problem is we don't really know what a healthy microbiome should look like, even though we know that having a healthy microbiome is important for being a healthy person. This is a chart where different colors represent different species of microbes from the guts of people living in different places in the world. Even though these are all from healthy people, we can see that the composition of their gut microbiome actually varies quite a lot. And so a healthy microbiome is probably different for everyone. So we do know that a healthy microbiome is diverse and balanced, but sometimes potentially harmful species can take over, producing an imbalance or dysbiosis. There are a lot of disorders associated with dysbiosis, including gut disorders like irritable bowel, but also psychiatric disorders like depression and neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's. So if we know that an imbalance of microbes can predispose us to certain diseases, can we manipulate our microbes to treat disease? And it's possible. I think we're getting there. The problem is, like I said, we have thousands of different microbes, and we don't really know what they all do. Probably the more we learn about the role of each species of microbes, the more we'll be able to manipulate them to treat or prevent disease. So, you've probably heard that probiotics are good for you, like these women really enjoying their yogurt. And the good news is that some cases, probiotics actually are really helpful. There's good evidence that they're helpful in treating gut disorders like irritable bowel and ulcerative colitis. And although the study of probiotics and mental health is still in its infancy, there's at least one study showing that probiotics can be helpful in treating depression. The problem is, not all probiotics are created equal. And in fact, how a probiotic is classified is really important. If a probiotic is classified as a drug, it comes under strict FDA regulation and has to be proven safe and effective before it can be sold to you. But if it's a dietary supplement, it just has to be generally accepted as safe and doesn't have to be proven effective at all. So be careful what you're spending your money on. So probably the absolute coolest part of manipulating the microbiome is the story of fecal transplants and C. diff. C. diff is a potentially fatal bacterial infection that actually kills about 15,000 people a year in the United States alone. It's highly resistant to antibiotics. But the super cool thing is that if fecal bacteria is transplanted from a healthy donor into someone with C. diff, it cures them about 90% of the time in cases where antibiotics have already failed. So that's a pretty miraculous life-saving treatment for a lot of people. All right, so if you like learning about the human body and how we're all really gross and have weird diseases, check out my podcast. It's called The Hypochondriac's Guide, and it's available on iTunes. Thanks for coming.
Great job. It's good. One thing you may have noticed, she did that in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. We got 30 seconds now to get to know each other better. That's good. I think I know you guys pretty well, because you're going to like the next talk. Among the things on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which, by the way, is kind of a made-up hierarchy. Maslow admitted it. He's like, I'm making this up. It sounds good, and now we believe it's like gospel. Hierarchy needs is that funny meme where people slash through everything, and everything is just Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is the only thing you really need anymore. So, in Seattle, that might be true, given how much we obsess about our bandwidth and such. So the next talk is going to help you out with that. Patrick McCanna is going to talk about how to become a Wi-Fi ninja. Please welcome him to the stage.
Holy cow, you guys are awesome. If you want to do something awesome, let's do something awesome. Let's imagine that you've invited all of your friends and neighbors over to do movie night on Friday. And you've put up your projector, you've gotten the Apple TV out, you've hooked everything up, It's about an hour before everyone shows up, and you get an error message. But this is cool. Everybody knows what we do. What do? We reboot the Apple TV. Doesn't work. Well, there's a superpower that we all have. We know that if we go to our wireless router and we hit the reboot button, that's going to solve all of our problems. But then we fire up our Apple TV again, and we've got the same error message. What if we use one of our computers? Everything seems to be working there, but not on the Apple TV. Maybe we overestimated our technical ability. And people are showing up in about a half hour, and you're realizing that you've made a pretty bad life choice. You don't really like people, you're more of an introvert. And so, what are we going to do? There's a lot of people who are going to show up and be disappointed. Wouldn't it be great if it was easy to troubleshoot your own Wi-Fi? It's super easy. It's actually something that all of you can do. There are 3 concepts that you need to have a handle on, and I'm going to share those with you tonight. So those 3 concepts that you need to understand are your wireless connection, something called Internet Protocol, it's IP, and then something called Domain Name Services. We say DNS. So we say it all together. Connection, IP, DNS. Connection, IP, DNS. Connection, IP, DNS. Connection, IP, DNS. Okay, you got it. What is the connection? That's your wireless strength. You want to be on a strong wireless network, and you want to be on your wireless network. If you're on a weak network, things are going to go bad, and if you're on the wrong network, things are going to go bad. So make sure you're on the right connection. Internet Protocol is this thing that does routing on the internet. If you're going to send mail to someone, you need to know their street address, and you also need to send your destination, the sender address. Computers work the same way. If you're going to send traffic on the internet, they have something called an IP address, and it looks like this crazy fun number here. You also need to validate that you can send traffic to connect IP addresses on the internet. You also need to validate that you can send traffic to IP addresses on your home network. So you want to check IP. Does my computer have an IP address? Can I send traffic to the IPs that are in my home network? And can I send traffic to the internet? The cheat here is we just try to send traffic to the internet first. And there's this magic spell, ping 8.8.8.8. That address I think you can all remember. You see traffic going there and you get a response, you know you have connections to the internet. Nothing, then you know something's wrong at home and you need to try to test your connections there. The third component is this cool thing called domain name services. Computers really like numbers and they hate names. And people really like names and hate numbers. And so DNS bridges the gap. It's the thing that takes our google.com or our facebook.com and turns us into one of those cool IP addresses there. If the computer can't access a DNS server, it doesn't know how to do translations. So you would actually be accessing the internet, but then you get these funky error messages that tell you that Google couldn't resolve. Do you want to Google for Google? So DNS is this third component. Every computer is configured to point to a DNS server. And so the way that you can test DNS is this magic spell, NSLOOKUP. And you can pick any domain you like, google.com, facebook.com, whatever. You get IP addresses coming back, you know DNS is working okay. You get nothing, something's wrong with your DNS server. So in our case before, I had my Apple TV pointing at the wrong DNS server. So DNS lookups failed, and then I got that weird iTunes message, even though I was actually connected to the internet. So that's really the secret here. It's those 3 simple things: your wireless connection, internet protocol, and domain name services. Your goal is to figure out, is my home network working? Yes or no. And then the second part is, can I access stuff on the internet? Yes or no. That's it, 3 things. I think you all can do this. I hope you thought this was cool. My name is Patrick McCanna. By day, I work for a company called AT&T, and I'm responsible for security in the mobile network. I work on a team that keeps 130 million subscribers safe from hackers. By night, I'm working on a book that teaches kids who are heading off to college about cybersecurity. If you think that's cool, please follow me on Twitter. I'll be announcing as the publication date gets closer. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Thanks very much, everybody.
Great job. Okay. Whew, all right. As frustrating as things like bad cell service, your Wi-Fi going down can be, it's easy for us, given all the things we have in our lives, all the privileges we have, to lose perspective on what's important. And I think our next talk is going to help reset our perspectives in a bunch of ways. Corinne Johansson is going to talk about Badass 3.0, and I'll let her explain to you what that means. Please welcome her to the stage.
What's the first rule of Fight Club? Tonight, I'm talking about a different Fight Club with a different rule. I run a Fight Club for people with Parkinson's, and our first rule is to kick Parkinson's ass. My fighters show up every morning to just say no to I can't. And they know that Ali could float like a butterfly and sting like a bee because he had practiced the balance and agility to be able to dance around the ring. So that's how we train, with boxing, some martial arts, even a few fundamentals from parkour. So I work with a gym full of people I consider badasses. Tonight, you'll meet 3 of them. Badass number 1 is Fred. Fred has had cerebral palsy his entire life, and then Parkinson stepped into the fray. Cerebral palsy affects his left side, and Parkinson's his right. But boxing balanced things out for him. He became stronger on the left side and more flexible on the right. Beyond that, by training like a pro fighter, jumping rope, he went from 2 consecutive jumps to 22 in just a few months. How's that for results? Badass number 2, Jeff, has hated and avoided exercise and the gym his entire life. But, and I bet a few of you can relate to that. But when Parkinson's came along and his meds only took him to 90% of what he deemed acceptable, he took up the sweet science. And he discovered that he had life-changing benefits from the program. So he decided a few weeks ago to go to training camp so that he could become my assistant coach and help others. Badass number 3, Big Mike, is what many of you might consider a typical badass. He was a football player, beach volleyball player, completed the 2-day, 200-mile STP cycling event at 39, took up pumping iron at 55. So as you can imagine, when I'm holding mitts for Mike's hooks and uppercuts, he can practically take my arm off. But other times, he freezes. And this is one of the symptoms of Parkinson's that when I went to the World Parkinson's Congress, I expected that the top names in neurology would have the magic answer for Mike and for me as his trainer. But they're still doing research about the whys. What I've been able to do since then, however, is to put together a toolbox of ways to either avoid or recover from those episodes. And so just the other day, we were working on a new routine, and Mike was hitting even harder than usual and not freezing. So I started this Fight Club because my dad had been hit hard by Parkinson's. But my fighters have reminded me that no matter what obstacle we're facing, we can hit back. So anyone who wants to learn more about what we do can hit me up after the presentation, or you can find us online at Beat PD WA. Thank you.
Great job. Wow. Okay, I'm inspired by that talk. I'm going to ask you to do something special, something we've never done before at Ignite. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've had 400 speakers on the stage. I'm going to ask you to do something we've never done before. You up for doing something? Okay. You don't really have a choice exactly, but okay. So what we are doing tonight is something unusual. We feel like we've been doing Ignite for a long time, and people come and have a great time, but when someone says, I went to Ignite last night, and they go, what is that? It's kind of hard to explain. So we're shooting a video tonight, a little promo video to help people come to the event and like it, and speakers explain what they're going to do. So one thing we'd like to do is get some footage of you folks in the audience, okay? And I will guide you through it. You trust me so far? Have you had fun so far? Talks are good? Interesting? Okay. All right. So the first thing you need to do is get the house lights up. Look at that. These guys are on the ball. These people are on the ball. Didn't take, like they read my mind this was going to happen tonight. Like, we had no idea. All right, so I'm going to have you do, everybody stand up. After that last talk, feel good about standing up. Feel your body's good. All right. Now, what we're going to do, I have a list of things I'm going to ask you to say. And I promise that at least most of them are things you might actually choose to say, okay? Not all, but most. So, and part of what we're going to do, we want to help people submit talks. We want a couple things we can put on the submission page that will encourage people to submit a talk. So the first one I'm going to have you say, and you can be enthusiastic, you can raise your hands and do crazy stuff, whatever you want. The first one I'm going to have you say is, we want you. And it's important as a crowd, have some spacing. So it's going to be, we want you. Okay, you ready? Okay, so I'll go 1, 2, 3, and then I'll go boom, boom, boom. All right, so 1, 2, 3. We want you. Fantastic. I was talking to some of the organizers about this, like, it's never going to work. They're never going to go for it. You're doing a great job. Let's do another one just want to get coverage. How film works, you have to get coverage. So one more time. We want you. Excellent. All right, so next one is going to be, what's your story? Okay, so what's your story? So I'll count off. 1, 2, 3. What's your story? Fantastic. How are they doing so far? Good? Maurice? Okay. Maurice, round of applause for Maurice, by the way. He's filming this. Okay. Also, most of the organizers don't really want to be on stage. This is Brian Zug, longtime organizer. Brian Zug. Okay, good. All right, so we'll do what's your story one more time. What's your story? Okay, good. All right. So now we'll get to the more fun part of my little list here. So we're going to do join us at Ignite, okay? So join us at Ignite. Join us at Ignite. All right, okay. The last one is the curveball one. So there's a theory that's actually of his invention about the things in the world that really upset us, and we call that entropy. People that we care about dying, things fading away, entropy. And we have this idea that part of what goodness is fighting against entropy. It's to make good things happen and to fight against things fading away. So there's a phrase that he came up with that is fuck entropy. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to say it. If that word offends you, I totally understand. Just cover your ears. Again, we are open-minded here. I don't want to force you to do anything, but that's what we're going to do now. Okay? So fuck entropy. Fuck entropy. I love you, people. You're good? Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. You can all sit down. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So, this is a fitting segue to our next talk, believe it or not. So, our next talk, Virginia Emery is going to talk about how being uncomfortable is really the only way to grow. Please welcome Virginia to the stage.
Hi, I'm Virginia. and my life's mission is to feed the planet. My superpower is being uncomfortable. So, here, great start, talking in front of a room full of people. Let's talk about uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is defined as causing or feeling slight pain, a little bit of discomfort, some unease, awkwardness. These are not pleasant things. We spend most of our lives running away from uncomfortable, pursuing comfort. And so I'm hoping today to convince you to turn the other way and embrace uncomfortable. To start us off, think back to your most uncomfortable time. Being a teenager, you all remember the awkwardness of growth spurts and the horrors of high school. But those are all important parts of your development into an adult and the person you are today. Remember back to that awkward feeling when you're asking someone out for the first time. That uncomfortable feeling is an important step to finding true love. Think about the last run you went on. Any runners in the room? Have you ever had to fart when you're running? Usually there's a really cute person behind you, and if you aren't willing to deal with that uncomfortable feeling, you'll never get stronger or faster. So really being uncomfortable is important for personal growth, spiritual, emotional, and physical. So my journey with uncomfortable, it started with one of my first jobs, tree planting. And tree planting sucks. You are dropped off in the middle of nowhere by your dad. You get every day driven out at 7 a.m. to a clear cut, a totally desolate place. You're plopped there with a couple thousand trees, and for 12 hours, you walk this plot of clear cut planting trees. To top it all off, the rhythm with which you plant is perfectly timed to Sir Mix-a-Lot. And I had that stuck in my head for 2 months. Along with that, there was this constant battle against the millions and millions of mosquitoes. So many mosquitoes that you can't keep your mouth open. You end up eating them. But I embraced the Zen philosophy of the Navy SEAL, which is learning to be comfortable with uncomfortable. And that's brought me to incredible places. I can be in the most beautiful jungle, and despite the bugs, really appreciate it. I can pursue my greatest fear of drowning, and go whitewater rafting, and have incredible adventures down the Grand Canyon. And most recently, my willingness to be uncomfortable has allowed me to start my own company. So a whole other story, I farm bugs to help farmers grow more food. But this journey of being a business owner has a lot of uncomfortable times. Probably the most significant has been having to fire people. This is a really uncomfortable feeling, and it's because there's so much pain and stress and uncertainty on the other side of that equation. Which brings me to what uncomfortable is not. If you are in pain, or you're sad, or you're angry, those feelings overwhelm you, and you can't make decisions properly. Uncomfortable, it's something different. It's unique. It's this knife's edge, this temporary feeling, moving from one comfort to another, a position of great privilege, and it gives you a lot of perspective. Our country, of course, has been feeling very uncomfortable, as has Seattle, and I think we all have the challenge now of harnessing and moving towards uncomfortable, to have the hard conversations. The problem is if we don't do this, things that would make us feel uncomfortable become desensitized as we try to make them comfortable. We go through this routine of making something visceral into something normal. This week, the UN declared the first famine since 2011. This should make everyone super uncomfortable. And this picture, I know it's making everyone here uncomfortable, and that's a good thing. Because uncomfortable is the sign that something needs to change, and that change is happening. And at least for me, Uncomfortable is what lets me be the change that I want to see in the world.
Thank you. Usually I'm kind of a hard ass about the 5-minute thing, but if you're that authentic on stage, you get another 10 seconds or so. So thank you, Virginia. That was very good. Next up, you're in for a treat. We have some alumni who come back and speak again and again. You're going to get a talk from one of them. She may be in the top 5 or 10% of people we've had on the stage. No pressure. She's laughed at that, so that's a good sign. Next up is Beth Fitzgibbon, who's going to talk about storage hacking, aka hoarding 101. Please welcome Beth at the stage.
Hi. 5 years ago, I gave a talk about the elegant art of waiting in line so that you could buy shit that everybody else wants to buy. Now I'm back to talk about where to put the shit that you bought. I love George Carlin's thing on stuff. If you haven't heard it, go find it. There is a fine line between hoarding and collecting. It's a very fine line, razor edge. And really what it boils down to isn't how much stuff you have. It's whether or not you have adequate storage for your stuff. Because if you do, then you're just a functional hoarder, which is totally okay. Except for when you move from a really large house to a smaller house, which was my situation. So what I realized is the first rule of storage hacking is you've got internal and outternal, new word, storage. Outer storage is displaying things. Outer storage is where you get to kind of make a statement about yourself through your stuff. Art, when you think about it, hanging on the wall is just a place to store your art. So think of things that are out as being stored. Inner storage is when you put things behind doors. These are things that maybe are about your personality that you don't want people to see. Or they're the practical things that you just need to put somewhere. So when you're gonna start doing some storage hacking, you make a list. What's my inner stuff? For me, it's things like batteries and toiletries. What's my outer stuff? Absolutely my Chewbacca collection. That's going out, front and center. So, best phrase that George Carlin said, a house is just a pile of stuff with a roof on it. And that is true for my case. So we moved into this new house. We lost about 600 square foot of storage. And so I had to get creative. So here's your first hack. Walls are just closets without shelves or doors. So this wall on the left, kind of an awkward space, we put shelves on it, and we've got a whole passel of other statues that we can rotate in. Small rooms are just big closets. Get clever. I loved how the staging of our new house, it was this nice little office. I'm like, screw that, it's a library. And I've got Legos in there and toys. Furniture, some furniture is just really storage in disguise. So like cool shelves, we have a bench with a drawer where we can put stuff, and even the lamp had a couple little shelves because I have a shit ton of art, trust me. If there is a space, there is a piece of furniture to go in there. I discovered this. This was insane. So we have this little tiny space above our toilet. We have this little space under the sink. I found shelving. It's amazing. So hobby, storage furniture, it's kind of a thing now. This gaming table is crazy. So the lid lifts up, and if I'm not done playing, we can put the game in, put the lid back down. There's little drawers that attach to the table. It's crazy. All right, let's talk about inner storage. Rethink the square. This closet actually has 4 different quadrants. We've got the like hats and coats on one side. I've got tubs of art on the other side. And then what you can't see is on the other side, really long things because the shelf didn't go all the way out. Wheels are everything. If you have weird closets, like this one's really narrow but long, we can like roll one thing out to get to the other one. So, and we have like wheels on our ladder. Call the professionals. This is my craft closet. I actually have another picture of this one because I love this closet. So this was like the Container Store over in Bellevue. It was like, what's your space? What do you need? They came in and installed it. It was amazing. Ban the bar. We hung a bar in this closet because, to hang stuff. And then I realized we're wasting all this space where we could put stuff. And so... right? So shelves for our DVDs and our games. Grab and go. So I had to show another picture of my craft closet. Like, I really love this thing. But on the right is our game closet, where, yes, I have labeled everything by the number of players, and they are in order from 1 to 8. As I was researching storage, I came across some amazing storage solutions and got very envious. The Lego storage is actually a Seattle guy. Look him up. It's amazing what he's done. This is just ridiculous. Like, let's just sit here for a minute. First of all, those purses could buy my home. The gaming one, he had tabs alphabetizing his games. So get clever, put your stuff out there, find a good home for it, and thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a little turn now to a more serious subject, go a little deeper again. Not that this isn't a serious subject, of course. The next talk, Bridget Foley is going to talk about the power of wearing your pain on your sleeve. Please welcome her to the stage.
So there are 2 ways to live a life free of grief. The first is to never love anything. No person, no pet, no television show, nothing. The second is to go ahead and love things, but to die before everything you care about. Those are your choices. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to assume you know they both suck. My point is that if you are very lucky, if you live a statistically normal amount of years and you have love in your life, you are going to experience grief. It is absolutely universal. Everyone in this room and this city and this planet is going to be in mourning at some point in their lives. So while that's sad, it also means that it's normal. It's expected. My question is, if grief is normal, why are we bad at it? Because we are bad at it. And I don't mean taking care of people who are grieving, I mean being people who are grieving. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and it might make some of you uncomfortable, but I promise it has a purpose. 3 years ago, my daughter died. It is the kind of loss that people say is unimaginable, but what they mean is that it's too painful to even think about, much less experience. There is a part of me that will never leave the room where my daughter died, and that is the truest thing that I can say. Okay, now, how are you feeling? No one's running for the door. You survived. I bet a fair few of you knew exactly what I was talking about when I said I will never leave that room, because you have your own rooms you will never leave. If there is one word that people use to describe the grieving process, it is lonely. And that is the paradox. Grief is universal. Grief is isolating. I am alone. I am in company. We are bad at grief because how to live with it long term is never modeled for us. Grieving people hide it because it's rude to make you feel like I just made you feel. But because other people hide their grief from us, when we experience it ourselves, we feel alone. This leads many of us to believe that loss is something you get over instead of something you get used to. But I have a proposal. I call it the wet chair, wet pants method of grief sharing. Don't worry, the pants and the chair are metaphorical. let's say you're out for a walk and your favorite little old lady neighbor spots you and she invites you to come sit with her on her porch. But when you get up there, you see that the chair that she's offered you is wet. And you know if you ask her for something to wipe it down, she's going to have to get up, and she's creaky, and her dog is in her lap. So do you just sit in the chair? Or do you make your neighbor just a little bit uncomfortable to spare yourself a greater discomfort? A wet chair is a choice a grieving person encounters when they have to decide whether or not to say something that reminds others that death happens, or to live with the wet pants of saying nothing. It's Happy Gilmore was my late wife's favorite movie too. Or, actually, I have 3 children. Now, I don't recommend doing this all the time. Sometimes it is better to have metaphorical wet pants. Job interviews, public speaking events. But if you can get comfortable with making others just a little bit uncomfortable, you open yourself up to so much more. Because the very worst thing that can happen is that you can remind someone that grief is normal and survivable. And the best thing that can happen, and it can only happen if you are open, is that the person you share with will get a look in their eyes, and they will say, "Me too." And that is how you open a door that connects the room that you will never leave to the room that they will never leave. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good stuff. Okay, so this is our last talk for the first half. This talk, we have so much in our society and American culture about people who succeed, and we lionize them and romanticize them. We often use words like genius and prodigy, and we call people that there's some luck, that there's some magical thing that happened that distances their talents from ordinary people. And our next talk is going to dispel some of those myths and rumors. Stephanie Lukash is going to talk about how to win a national award. Please welcome her to the stage.
So I won a national award last summer for my work at King County, and it was incredible. Thanks. It's the sort of thing you aspire to for your entire career, and you think, wow, that would be amazing if that ever happened. I'm a change agent. I change culture in organizations, and I work for King County government. And the reason why I care so much about the work is because of all of you, because you're all taxpayers, and I want my job to be good because I know that it will save you money and time when you do business with us. So I'm a public servant, and I'm very proud of that work I do. Thank you. But I realized in that it was about finding your power and finding the advice I would give to my 22-year-old self if I was to go back in time. And it's not luck. It's about finding your passion and diving in. I've been surprised by the number of people who've said, oh, you're so lucky to have that job, or you're so lucky to win that award, or to work part-time. And I tell them all the time, it's not luck at all. It's years of hard work and perseverance and determination. And I'm the person who says yes to challenging assignments. If there's a controversial project that on the team no one wants to take, I say yes. And you know why? Because it stretches me. And I think that's really important. One of my mantras is make yourself indispensable. And that's a piece of advice I give to everyone I mentor. Make yourself indispensable. Think about what you can do to learn, grow, always be stretching, always be learning. And I think that will take you a long way toward finding your own personal power. And for me, my experience has never been that opportunity knocks. I've always knocked for opportunity. And it's really important to know that. If you're going to find your power, you need to get that straight. You have to knock for opportunity and persist. Don't take no for an answer. If there's a place that you want to work, go for it. Continue, persevere, ask. Don't take no for an answer. It's really important. In my career, I've done this a number of times, and my most recent job change 2 years ago, I left a job I loved. I had a team that was like family, and we were all really close, and I took an opportunity that was 2 years with no guarantees, and I had to prove myself, and you know what? I took it and have never looked back. And I think for me, one of the big things in my life, and I think many of us need to learn this, is how to shine. Step into the light. Learn how to be who you really are, and don't let anyone hold you back. And I think a big part of it, too, is learning how to accept credit. When someone says, hey, great job, what you say is simply thank you. What you don't say is, oh, it was nothing, or oh, it was a team effort, when it really wasn't. If you've done really important work, take credit. It's absolutely important. And you have to apply for the award. It's not like the National Association of Counties said, oh, I think Stephanie Lukash up in King County is doing really great work. Let's give her an award. No, I had to tell our story. I had to work really hard in the application, and it's uncomfortable. It's like when we interview for jobs, and some of us find that uncomfortable, like tooting your own horn and talking about how great you are. But it's important to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because if you don't, you're not going to find your power. And I guarantee you'll have critics, guaranteed. And what you have to do is realize, I'm going to keep my power. I'm not going to let my critics take my power from me. And just accept that they're there. It's a challenge, but you can deal with it. And it's really important to do that. And I think for me, one of the big things in my life I think I've done really well is always be in a place of gratitude. Be appreciative of the people around me, the love I have in my life, the good things, especially when things are going difficult or challenging. If you're in a place of gratitude, it takes you a really long way. And I also really think it's important to have a strong work-life balance. I work part-time, like I mentioned, and that's not a small thing. It's a very conscious decision, and it took years of working full-time to get to this place, but I think life is short. And it's really important to take advantage of opportunities and to live fully and to live right now. And one of my big mantras in life is not have regrets, no regrets. So it's really important to remember that life is short. And I think something else that people often don't do, but I think is really important, is to thank the people who helped you along the way. When I found out about the National Award, when the National Association of Counties contacted me, I told my boss, and then I told my husband and my best friend, and then I made 2 phone calls to 2 of my mentors who are both retired now, who were critical in my development and who helped me along the way, because I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm on their shoulders and the next generation's on my shoulders, and that's why it's important to mentor those who are coming after us. And finally, I would say, stay humble, but stay hungry. I want all of you to be 90 years old and learning something new, right? Learning how to play chess for the first time, right? Learning some new hobby. Because if you're always hungry, that's how you find your power. You find your passion, you keep working toward it, you're always curious. And who knows, maybe you'll receive a national award too. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that was excellent. So we're about to go to our break. A couple of tips for you. Just share an experience with a whole bunch of people that you don't know that well yet. Easy tip. You're going to be in line for a drink, line for food, line at the photo booth. Say, hey, which was your favorite talk? You have basis for conversation with a whole bunch of people you haven't met before who may become now part of your community and friends. So go. We'll have 25 minutes. Then we'll start up with the second half of the talk. Go and be well and have fun.
all going to take, two of us are taking off. We haven't concentrated. We will have, maybe we'll come back here now.
They bought the house in West Seattle. Okay. Where do they want to move to? Cheaters? So West Seattle makes sense to choose in Swedish, yeah. So they want to move to Bellevue, or? I will say that 405 is no joke. Yeah, I mean, just my brother and his wife had a house in Renton, like up on Cannondale, so not around the corner, and they actually rented it out and rented a house in Bellevue because that commute was so bad. Because my brother works in the tech, down, so anyway. Maybe her schedule will come out. So she's used to it. Right, but that's my point is that's still about it. Yeah. But it's not. It's actually really well planned and like master planned way better than It's the constellation, the way it connects is very deep. The schools are amazing. It's got really beautiful reach space. I mean, it's funny, like, I'll get together with one of my best friends and he's at she's from Seattle, high school, crying. Remember you guys like sad PR about it? I've actually been thinking about it. Yeah, I see some things. I used to think when I was here, I used to have this church that we're not meeting the
research that shit. We're more info. So you see info. Shot.
Nora has more friends. My point is, I don't know, I want to get home. And I want to buy something. like it's teaching yourself down the street. To be honest, like to get him over the curb, but I think it's less on it. And his friend's like, man, what's your shoes? And then he's gonna send me an energy about shoes. This was funny, and I laughed. I turn around and laugh. I like when people get self-deprecating, and then he's like, I don't want to put my shoes, you know, and I was like, fine, put something. It was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, you took one foot. Like, that's like, put something under it. It was soft. I was like, just want to give me my sock. I didn't see this. And he said, I mean, it was cool yesterday. It's so unbelievable. And how cool. Socks. Like, no, I'm gonna talk about it. It's just like, yelling at some boyfriend. I'm like, downtown, and I don't hear anything, and I'm like, I don't even know when I sit my TV. Like, I want to and I just help them get down with food and like, but it wasn't even me. It was like a girl, 2 gals running by, screaming and yelling. You know, anyway. It's so, you know, I'm you start like moonwalking in front of it or something, and I'm going to call you up. Oh man, I may have needed that one. Oh no, just laughing. That was really hard. So I just didn't laugh about it. You guys are going crazy on your house. Oh, just working on the kitchen. I don't know, herringbone, tile, new vents. Yeah.
No, we did that a while back. We actually mostly did it every while.
Let her do her thing. Home ownership though, man.
Most of she likes to do it. I mean, not that I don't really know how to make sure I do it, but that's like one of these figured out Minecraft as far as like how to make money even stuff. So I'm kind of like figuring myself out. I've been doing video now for a couple of years, but the videos slow.
For the site or for where?
Basically, all I have to do is like, I assist the photographer, and he tells me where the lights go, so I make sure down to the bus.
How many studios do they have?
I don't really know. I haven't done big plays. All I know is that I work.
It's so interesting because, you know, we worked with the DPR team and they had that studio there and it was just like, just a mess.
Was it in the yard?
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually shoot it. So Amazon has a building that they're renting down near Erie called Valley Seed. And they got the keys.
Okay. For photography and video? Or? Are you guys doing their DPR stuff? Their reviews? Like,
Yeah, well, they do some of it themselves, but some of the stuff that we were kind of see is like the camera has the red face. Once we make pictures, it's 21 days, you know, and it has like most graphic stuff. And basically, what I do is I just make sure when I make
If you are a speaker for the second half, please come up to the front. Please come up to the front right here, speakers for the second half. We'll be underway shortly.
We avoid it a lot of the time. This one finally dialed. We got stuff here. This is one of my
Hello, welcome back to Ignite Seattle. How are you doing? Feeling good? Feeling good? Got a biology taken care of? Intake, outtake, all that stuff? Fantastic. I have a couple of housekeeping things to mention to you. So number one is about Ignite. So I mentioned organizers, there's a bunch of us. We also depend on volunteers. We have volunteers who help make everything fit together. If you've been inspired tonight so far, you're like, wow, that's a cool thing. I've never heard of this before. I want to help keep it going. You can volunteer. All you have to do is show up, greet people at the door, help out with normal human things that don't require tremendous cognitive effort. If there are capable things that don't require tremendous cognitive effort and want to help, go to our website. There's a link, I'd like to help, and fill it out. We appreciate that. That helps us keep this whole thing going. Second thing is even more practical and basic. If you got a drink, you got some food, you have it with you, please clean up. One of the things the organizers and volunteers do at the end of the night is go through and put everything away. We are not a movie theater, I know. You should be thanking me right now, right? Yeah, okay. All right, great. We're not a movie theater, we don't own the staff who get paid exorbitant amounts of money from movie studios to do what they do. So please, when you're done at the end of the night, don't worry about it now. Look around you, take whatever you brought in and put it away, put it in the trash, take care of it. Sound good? Fair? Nothing on too difficult? Thank you. All right. So, for our second half, you may have noticed that there are things on stage other than the speaker at the moment. Huh, what is this for? Well, you're going to find out in a minute. This is a special introduction. I want to make sure I get it right. Next up, B. Calvez, the Grand Poobah, assisted by Christina Castellano, aka Queen Poopachina, is going to talk about Holy Shit, a New Way to Go. Please welcome them to the stage.
Can you say holy shit? I am here to transform the way you think about shit. And I will not be deterred. How How many of you pee or poop every day? All right, well, with your poo mission, I'm going to show you a new way to go. So, does shit stink? Yes. Is shit gross? That makes sense because shit has pathogens in it that can make us sick. So we want to be as far away with it as possible. That's why we have flush toilets. This is what we've grown up with, right? It makes sense. It takes the poop away from us. Problem solved, right? But we live in a culture of disposability where that shit has a value of 0. And the stuff we pour down the drain like Comet and Drano and the pesticides and pharmaceuticals all go down the drain because they have a value of 0. And also on top of that, we're pooping in drinking water. Can you say holy shit? Holy shit! What's up with that? Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't make sense. But that's what we know. That's what we know how to do. So on top of that, the average American flushes 14 gallons of water down the toilet per day for pooping and peeing. And the average African uses 5 gallons for all their water needs. So holy shit, holy shit. So here's the new paradigm. What would holy shit look like? Can we even imagine what it would look like to honor our shit? Like, what would it be if shit actually had value, if it was valuable? So here it is. Actually, on our planet for millions of years, animals have been pooping. And that's a lot of R&D. And so what you have is poop coming out of the animal, going onto the ground, becoming compost, going into the trees, and becoming food for the animals again. It's a big cycle. So we're going to have a live demonstration from Queen Pupacina here in front of your eyes of a sawdust toilet. This comes from the Humanure Handbook. It's totally amazing, and it's totally simple. The idea is you have a toilet box, you have a 5-gallon bucket, and you have cover material like sawdust or like shredded leaves or something along those lines. You poop in the bucket or pee in the bucket. Thank you very much. There it is. Then you cover that poop or pee with your cover material, and guess what? It doesn't stink. Guess what? It's totally sweet and nice. And guess what? All of that material is going to go to make something beautiful, like food or flowers. And guess what? On top of that, we can take that bucket and put that into a system and compost that in our own neighborhoods, in urban environments, without bugs, without odors, without getting sick. We can do this, folks. It's totally doable. Yeah. This is poop that no, this is not poop. This is compost. My family go, do you eat poop? I was like, no, I don't eat poop. So this is compost aged for 2 years. It's totally safe. It's beautiful. Now imagine this is our future. You have your yard waste bin, you have your recycle bin, and you have your full buckets of poop. And somebody comes and picks that up and takes that away from you. And they bring you fresh buckets and more cover material, and we don't have to poop in drinking water at all. So here's holy shit. This is our project to take sawdust toilets to festivals, and this is from last summer. And our job is to make this beautiful and make it fun and show that this doesn't have to be so freaking serious. We're pooping. It's okay. So people play ukuleles in the potty. We married a couple in one of the potties, and we have fun. We dance around and we do stuff. We have a great time. So the idea is, and people say that they were so blown away by this, and we're just pooping in buckets. That's all we're doing. So this is the compost mandala. This is artwork created by community. This is finished compost. This is not poop. And people can put their hands in it and make beautiful stuff. And here's Poomoji, the holy shit, who we parade around. Yes, bow down before Poomoji. And this is our amazing team, Queen Pupacina and Sphincterina and me, the Grand Poobah. And our job is to bring the gospel of shit to the world. And here we are. Folks, we don't have to poop in drinking water. Shit is sacred and water is sacred. And we can compost our poop and turn it into something beautiful that brings new life. So can you say holy shit for me? Holy shit! Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And one last thing. It's time for us to take responsibility for our shit. We can do this.
That was excellent. Excuse us while we get some shit off the stage. I was worried with the fuck entropy thing that I'd make you a little uncomfortable, but after that talk, I'm like, I was just paving the way. We all have family. We all get mad at people. Some people do it in a healthier way than others. This talk is going to help all of you parents out there think about the emotional context of how you deal with your children. Jenna Pertuset is going to talk about how to be mad at your kids. Please welcome her to the stage. I got it right?
You did.
Okay.
So just like we all poop, we all get mad. There is nothing wrong with you if you get mad, although sometimes it can feel like it, especially if you've experienced anger expressed at you in ways that have been abusive or otherwise harmful. It can feel like a load of crap to carry or to impose on other people. And from your personal experience, but also from the ways we're culturally conditioned, if you think about the ways that women's anger, for example, is policed, and the stereotypes like the angry black woman or the good girl, these things are ways of trying to control anger because it feels threatening. Anger is powerful. Anger is necessary. It can be a source of justice and of holding boundaries. We need anger, and we need to model it for our kids in ways that don't harm them and that give them a sense of how to handle their own anger. Our kids aren't lab rats. They don't need immediate and consistent input. So if you're really heated, one constructive thing you can do is nothing. Contain yourself. Hold on to it. Wait until you can handle it better. If you do have control of your emotions, you're angry, but you can be a little creative. You can be playful. You can bring in humor. Then you have the opportunity to change the situation, either in the moment or because you've planned ahead. If you think about the things that you've told your kids 1,000 times, if you think about what always pisses you off, if you can predict it, you can plan for it. And one thing that you want to do to change the situation essentially is just get out of it. Not necessarily leave the space you're in, but get out of the conflict as quickly as you can by owning your responsibility for it. What can I do to make this better? Not how can I make you stop pissing me off? So if we are looking for other constructive ways of handling our anger, we can complain about it. Not by biting our kids' heads off, but by finding those places that we can vent and we can move our bodies through our experiences of anger in the ways that we're already moved to. Maybe we need to scream. Maybe we need to punch a punching bag. We find the ways that we can complain or vent anger that are constructive and not hurtful for our kids. One way may be by finding the people who can hear you, the friends who can hear you say, I hate my kid. And they're not going to judge you. They're not going to try to fix you. They're just going to witness you. Now, they'll have compassion for you, but they're not going to collude with you. They're not going to agree, yeah, you're right, your kid is an asshole. When you find those people, when you find the people who can hold those emotions with you, who can help you find your softer emotions, those people are gifts in your life. Those are the people who can help you reach that ultimate constructive expression of anger, which is moving through it into sadness. That sadness, when we can cry about what disappoints us, when we can feel the ways that our expectations haven't been met, when we look at our own failings or the ways that we wish our kids were different, then we have the possibility of being changed by the things we can't change. And that's the ultimate transformation that moving through anger into sadness allows for us. So if you want to constructively handle anger, you can contain yourself, you can change the situation, you can complain about it, or you can cry. So those are all ways that we become the parents who can handle anger in ways that
are useful and constructive. So my work is, as a parent coach, I rely on the work of Dr. Gordon Neufeld, who is focused on helping parents understand their kids. My work is helping parents understand ourselves so we can better serve our kids. If you want the notes from this talk and other resources about handling anger, especially for parents, you can text MAD to 444-999. My name is Jenna Pertuset. It looks like Jenny. It sounds like Jenna. And I'm also a mom. And I came to this work because I needed to help my daughter handle her anger, and to do that, I had to handle my own. Thank you.
Is your daughter here? Can I make her stand up and get a round of applause?
Yeah.
Okay. What's her name?
Meg.
Meg. I believe that her daughter's actually here. Meg, where are you? Meg, can you stand up? Round of applause for Meg and her mom here. By the way, they're flashing the heart sign at each other. Just cool. We need like an ignite sign. I don't know what to be, like a fire. I don't know what to be. Some of you creative people, you work on that. Tell me after the show. Next up, we have assumptions about how the world works. One thing happens after another. Is that about our perception, our cognition, or is that truly a fact about how the universe works? Our next talk is going to answer, or at least explore some of these questions. Andre Borodin is going to talk about obsession with causality. Please welcome him to the stage.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Tonight, I want to talk about obsession with causality and how it affects our perception of the world, can lead us to false conclusions and incorrect actions. Because you see, learning starts from observations. You make observations, you create cause and effect chains. So for example, if you see lightning, you hear thunder, cause and effect. And these are correlations. Now these observations, they condition us. So if you imagine a Pavlov's dog, it was conditioned to expect food every single time it would hear the bell ring. But that conditioning is absolutely useless. It doesn't help it get food when it hears the bell ring. So here's the interesting thing. The conditioning was instinctual. But there's another form of condition we humans have called superstition. Superstition is a conditioning that we can get without observation. Someone can give it to us. I'm not immune, neither are some of the greats. For example, Michael Jordan would always wear his North Carolina shorts and his normal shorts for playing for the Bulls. Maybe explains why his greatness didn't go to baseball. He didn't wear the shorts, you know? Or greatest man of science, Albert Einstein, would have a horseshoe up on the wall, and he obviously didn't believe in it, but he was very well aware of the fact that you don't have to believe in it for it to bring you luck. So I implied that superstition is limited to reasoning. But is that really so? Or is it something deeper, our deep instinct of cause and effect? So, is it limited to humans? Or do animals experience that as well? Well, interestingly enough, B.F. Skinner has discovered that if you feed pigeons at intervals, they develop their own unique rituals, how to conjure up food. Some would spin in their cage twice, others would knock on the door. Now, these superstitious pigeons obviously have a false link, and we turn to research to look for the true links. But sometimes we get bizarre results. I mean, like, what's up with the eggs? But what I'm suggesting, though, is that some research is governed by big data. We process a massive amount of big data to find patterns, to use those patterns for correlations, and come up with cause and effect chains. For example, in the state of Maine, the divorce rate is correlated with the consumption of margarine. If you're happily married, perhaps don't eat margarine. If you like mozzarella cheese, you're a good candidate to be a civil engineer, doctor. But let's be serious, because this next one is a bit concerning. There seems to be a relationship between US oil imports and chicken consumption. What oil does the secret recipe of KFC use? But, all right, so obviously these correlations are clearly false, no causality link. But sometimes we attribute causality to less obvious chance events, like Bill Miller's personal success. He was once named the greatest money manager of our time for having beat the market for 15 years. But if we think about it, it's almost inevitable that a fund manager would have beat the market for 15 years in the past 40 years out of all of them. So is his success really attributed to his personal strength, or is it just luck? Especially considering that the following years haven't went so great. Or if we turn to sports, many athletes have suffered poor performance seasons after going on the Sports Illustrated cover. Now, the Sports Illustrated is not over 15 years. The choice is much narrower. It's higher influenced by luck. But what about negative luck? Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the most consistent performers. He has been nominated for Oscars and expected to win numerous times. But Lady Luck wouldn't have it so. Now, also, consider this. His loss was a couple Oscars. Bill Miller's loss was his finances. So this is a black swan event. Because if you bet all your fortune on the white swans, and then you leave yourself completely exposed to the unexpected black swan event. Because the point is not to be risk averse, but to limit your exposure to the unpredictable events, the black swan event, that can have irreversible impact. See, life is not necessarily predictable. You won't find a causality chain to predict it. So let chance and randomness in, put all your effort in, limit your exposure, and if you want to achieve success, just double your failure rate. Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you. So next up, Stephanie Carrillo is going to talk about why it takes a village. Please welcome Stephanie to the stage. We got some friends in the audience.
My village over here, yes. So I am a community manager, a landlord, if you will. And I must say, it is a crime to get paid for what I do. My company pays me to build relationships with people. However, my boss is here, and if she wants to give me a raise, I'm totally open for negotiation later. There's this joke that I have with my friends that I act like I'm the mayor of the communities that I manage. I'm out there each day shaking hands and kissing babies. I may take what I do a little too seriously. I meet people every day that are moving to Seattle from out of state, and it pains me to think that one day they may experience that dreaded Seattle freeze. Many of you know what I'm referring to, but for those of you who don't, let me enlighten you. The gist of it is, have a nice day somewhere else. Don't get me wrong, everyone here is very kind, but at the same time, everyone here is also very busy. Luxury apartment isn't going to pay for itself, you know. So I did a little research, and I found that only 20% of Americans can say they know their neighbors by name, and far fewer interact with them on a daily basis. Remember growing up when your best friend lived down the street? So as we're preparing for this talk, I was talking with one of my residents, and he gave me this amazing metaphor that I will now reference. Thank you, Aaron. I know you'll be watching this later. He compared people to books. And usually we only see what's on the cover. If we're lucky, we'll get to read what's inside. He asked me, why does building community matter? Like, why would it matter to other people? Most people have that what's in it for me attitude. And he's right, most people do have that attitude, what's in it for me. I've come to realize not everyone else is like me. They may just need a little help getting there. So why is it important? Because strong social interactions, they make people happier. It's science. We can't and shouldn't argue with science. We're not talking alternative facts here. This is real shit. So, you know, they say it takes a village to raise a child. How about it takes a village just to get through life? There's no reason that we should go at this alone. You need to find a strong support group around you to help you get through it. So, I met one of my best friends at a community barbecue that my daughter and I crashed. Had we not gone to that barbecue that day and just started talking to that lady sitting there by herself, I would have missed out on this. My daughter, who was all of 9 years old, built community that day. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want you to think it's all rainbows and unicorns for me every day. It's not. There are days where I build community so hard that all I want to do is just crawl into bed and not look anyone in the eye on the way home. That is where this guy comes in. my superhero fiance. We kind of inspire each other when it comes to this subject. When the day kicks my ass and I don't want to look any in the eye, he will grab the reins. When we moved into our apartment building, he decided to join the basketball league. They asked, and he said yes. He has made such a strong foundation of friendships with the other people in this league. He didn't start it, but he said yes when he was invited. I would like to introduce you to Mr. Brown. This is our puppy. You can follow him on Instagram later. Yes. So we know so many people in our neighborhood because of our dog. You know, he helps us build community. I mean, he does it for cookies, but that doesn't make it any less important. So I've recently discovered what book club is. Apparently, you don't even have to read a book to do book club. It's really just a covert way to drink wine together. I am so down for that. So whenever I get people together, I try to think of like creative and like engaging ways to make people happy. I do my best to link people up with someone that I think that they might get along with. And I kind of think of myself as like the millionaire matchmaker, except for they're not millionaires, and I'm not trying to create a love connection. So maybe I'm just trying to connect people so that they can just do life together. Whenever I see a bromance blossom, it just warms my heart and brings me so much joy that like I was a part of that. I helped make that happen. I love creating a platform for something like that to happen. So you're asking yourself, what can I do so that I can leave behind the shadows of an isolated life? Well, you can start by asking yourself, if you can't name at least one or two of your neighbors, I think it's time that you say hi. A simple smile. If you're invited to go somewhere, just say yes. I think it's more about being intentional to put ourselves in situations where we can do life together. So that's how you can connect with me and do community with me. Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good. There are lots of different ways to think about communities and to think about worlds, and we're going to hear a talk that's going to challenge us to think about the worlds that we create for our children. John Krietzky is going to talk about a world for every classroom. Please give him a round of applause. Coming up.
So who here has played this game? This is the Oregon Trail, and this game is brutal. The first thing you do in this game is you put in the names of your family members, your friends, and it spends the rest of the time killing them off with horrible diseases and accidents. And this is a game for kids. Like, why would you do this, right? And the creators knew that there's something really powerful about that, putting people in that experience, giving them that gift of being in this world. Because education hasn't changed a whole lot since its original conception in its current form in the Industrial Revolution. We're still dividing up subjects. We're still doing a lot of rote learning and memorization. And it's great if you're training factory workers, but if you're training students who need to face the challenges that we haven't even discovered yet, it's totally insufficient. And what I wonder is if we can bring technology into this equation, if we can somehow, bridge that gap. So my background is I worked in the commercial games industry on games like Batman and Lord of the Rings. These big budget titles that, there's something magical about games. You don't have to make somebody play a game. It's not like homework, right? Like, they're just drawn to it naturally. And is there something about that? Like, if education could be like that it's just this self-driven thing. Could we bring that power of education of games into education? So I'm currently working on a project called Eco. So we founded a new studio, and Eco is a game that simulates an ecosystem of thousands of plants and animals for a single classroom. And this world is set in a scientific simulation of an ecosystem where players have to build a civilization. And all their resources are coming from the environment, so they can affect the environment that they're playing in. And the teacher is part of this world, so they understand what's going on and like what students are doing, and they can use this in their classroom. And this is highly focused on collaboration and leadership and connection. You can create governments in the game. You can propose laws, and then players vote on it. They're forming these groups in order to make decisions about what should be allowed in this world. Because the problems that we're facing today are not just scientific, they're not just knowledge problems, they're social problems. They're things that we need to connect to each other, we need to understand. These are the skills that we need to give other people. And this just puts everything that they're learning in such a context. Because it's a fragile world. The world of eco can die. It can be polluted, you can chop down all the trees, your species can go extinct, you can kill off your food supply. So it really lives or dies based on the students' decisions. There's these stakes. What they're learning in class is immediately applicable in this social context. You know, they're playing with their friends, this world's important to them, and that just gives so much more value to what you're learning in school. It gives you the why that education so often struggles to provide. Because there's no bad guys in this game. The only enemies are other players and trying to decide the right way forward. And even though you have the same shared goal, people have different biases, different ways of approaching it. And the weapon you wield in this game is data. So you're able to look at the simulation, you're able to see what's happening in this world, what's happening to the population rates, what are players doing, what pollution rates are happening, and use that to argue your point. So you're basing it in these facts of this world, and that is how you succeed in the game. So we tried this out in some classrooms, and one classroom we had, first period comes in. First thing they do, chop down pretty much every tree, and they build these awesome houses out of them. And then second period comes into the same world, they're sharing it, no trees anywhere. So they chop down the houses of first period, build their own houses. And just that conflict, that you have the same goal in this game, but your individual needs and biases. It's tragedy of the commons. Giving players that experience and trying to navigate that is the future of what we need. So we're rethinking, how can technology fit in the classroom? Traditionally it's kind of, you have computer lab and you sit down, you have this individual experience, right? Which is not really making use of the classroom space. I'm interested in something that you're playing the game at home, and the classroom is the council meeting time. It's where you're discussing what's going on in the shared world, where you're applying everything you're learning in the class. You're connecting to each other and using your skills immediately. And I think there's a huge potential for games to really address some of the huge challenges that we face. Things like climate change and sustainability. These are massive problems that happen over huge amounts of time. And with a game, you can compress that into a tiny space, in a tiny period of time, that you can see the impact, you can see the effect you're having, and actually understand what your role is in this thing, and then work it out with your peers. And maybe it's not that games need to look more like education, but that education needs to look more like games. Thanks a lot.
Good job. Excellent. So I'm going to take a little segue here, just a brief little interlude. I made a mistake at the last Ignite. How many of you were at the last Ignite, our 10th anniversary? Many of you were here? Okay, great. So at that event, for those of you who were not here, we had this little game that I played with the audience. I had a bundle of swag, however you pronounce it, of stuff that previous Ignite speakers had done, and I gave it away to someone in the audience. I made everyone whose birthday stand up, and I gave it to one person whose birthday it was. And it turned out that person I had run into downstairs at the intermission, I learned it was their birthday, and I played this game, and it was a ruse. All the people who stood whose birthday it was, most of them did not get the prize. And at the after party, which, by the way, it's a secret after party that happens after every Ignite at the Quarter Lounge, which is 2 blocks up the hill. So it's top secret. Don't tell anybody about it, but that's where it is. A woman came up to me, and I was at the bar ordering drinks for the speakers, and she came up to me and says, "Hey, it's the birthday thing." And I was like, "Yeah, what'd you think of that?" She's like, I was really upset by it. I'm like, "Why?" Because it was my birthday, and I was here alone. And I stood up when you said to stand up, and I didn't get the prize. And I was so, post-event, I was really elated, and it took me a while to process, I really screwed up her night. So I apologize to her, and I have an idea for how to redeem this. Can you help me redeem this? Hey, how many drink tickets have you had? Security. Charles Oakley's in the front row. Okay, so it's a New York joke for those you don't know. Anyway, what I'd like to do, if it's your birthday, please stand up. Stand up. We have one. I know statistically, there's at least 10 of you here. Stand up if it's your birthday. Was it your birthday this week? Help me out. Birthday this week. Okay. Are you willing to pretend it's your birthday? Okay, that's good. We have enough. So I'd like you all to do to help me. Can we sing happy birthday to them, please? On the count of 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Birthday, dear whoever you are. Happy birthday. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. My last note, it's a personal one before we get to our closing three speakers, which are going to be fantastic. We try to close the night strong. We had a talk earlier tonight. Bridget talked to us about grief, and my wife and I have had a very tough week. Our dog, who we love very much, we had to put him to sleep, put him down just a day ago. And it also turns out, though, that there's a good thing about this week that both of us tend to forget. My wife and I had our first date, our anniversary of our first date 26 years ago is this week. And she is in the audience somewhere. Where is Jill? Can you stand up, Jill, please? Where are you? Hey, round of applause for Jill, please. Thank you. Yeah. So she totally hates this stuff. I'll probably sleep on the couch, but thank you for making an offering. I appreciate it. Okay, now continue with the show. 3 more speakers. You'll be on your way. Should you remember the secret place, Quarter Lounge. You want a drink, meet some speakers, that's where you should go. So coming up next, we love to have a diverse group of people, diverse ideas come up on stage. Coming up next is our youngest speaker tonight. So I want you to give an especially enthusiastic welcome. River O'Connor is going to talk about simulating the international community. Please welcome him to the stage.
When I was in middle school, I got in trouble for writing out the Nazi hierarchy on a whiteboard. I was explaining the plot of The Man in the High Castle to a friend, all right? I love history and politics, and through those passions, I found the Model United Nations organization. This is a lot. MUN focuses on the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Secretariat, the Economic and Social Council, and the International Court of Justice to simulate. MUN takes a week at the United Nations and compresses it into a weekend for an MUN conference. These conferences, which are annual and are held locally, will have you write a paper on a position you are given. You will then submit the paper before attending the conference's set location with the rest of your school team. The expected attire is Western business formal. MUN started in 1945, coming from the Model League of Nations. Originally only for college and university, MUN is now for middle and high school, with conferences being held around the world. But this won't help. This will help. This shows all those hundreds of conferences being held for hundreds and occasionally thousands of attendees. MUN is truly a global event that brings students from around the world together to discuss serious issues, and I find that really inspiring about MUN. Now, conference debate varies, but it will usually consist of opening, caucuses, a discussion among the whole group to debate details and write resolutions, attempting to vote on those resolutions, and then closing debate. A crisis committee is in a war or humanitarian emergency that will operate after opening in continuous caucus, where delegates can write directives, which are little actions which they and any conspirator can submit to navigate debate. More on crisis committees later. I'm going to try and explain more about how MUN is significant to me and this world through some of my own experiences. I applied my last year of middle school. I got into my high school's MUN program in 2015. I was passionate about politics and history, and I joined my classmates twice a week to prep for conference. We practiced writing resolutions and position papers. We practiced debate procedure. But most importantly, we kept up with the world around us that we lived in through the news. Representing in Seattle, Vietnam on the Human Rights Council at my first conference was great. I worked with people I'd never met before to pass resolutions on cultural appropriation and the rights of indigenous people. It was powerful to do that and know that some real diplomats couldn't achieve that. Flying to Washington, D.C. for Venezuela on an ad hoc Security Council was also great. Ad hocs deal with all conference topics. It's one of the most advanced committees a delegate can do. In addition, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia spoke there, showing me that these leaders know MUN is important. Representing Iran on Bashar al-Assad's side during the Syrian civil war on a joint crisis committee was different. I was on a joint crisis committee for the pro-Assad bloc. Russia's interventions were very recent at the time, It was very new to me and very controversial. But part of MUN is representing positions that you may not personally agree with, but in doing so, you can find yourself more empathetic to people on the other side of your personal opinion and deal with more controversial issues like Syria's civil war from a more open-minded perspective. No technology while delegates are debating. So that's why, as a page at my high school's hosted Skyman conference, I relayed messages. Doing this gave me respect for the other students that put in the hard work volunteering to put on these conferences for other delegates to attend to. My first MUN year ended. I had grown in my debate and my diplomacy skills. I re-entered the interview application process. I was with a different team, but I was an MUNer ready for the next cycle of conferences. Representing China, pro-Russia on the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and the war in the Central African Republic with more impassioned, more tough delegates to debate with and against was a great opening to a new year. My second crisis committee was representing Spanish Republicans in Vancouver, Canada. A historical crisis committee operates on a specific historical event. We came up with a different outcome than what really happened. We won. Awards are given at the end of the conference, and they're split into 3 categories. A delegate award for delegates that best represented debate, cooperation, and conduct. A literary award for position papers, and team awards for best small and large delegation teams coming to the conference. You think this is too much for a teenager. This is dark. This is serious. There are laughs. There's camaraderie. There's a social. It's not all dark, gritty politics. We know it's a simulation. Some of these positions aren't our own, but it's a simulation. MUN has allowed me to connect with people with my passion to grow and learn. And I think that's what MUN is most importantly about, connecting people and educating them about the international community we live in. Thank you.
Great job, McCanna.
How old are you? 16.
So if you're feeling depressed about the state of things and the future of things, that young gentleman is 16 years old. I just did that. So next up is one of my favorite talk titles of all time, perhaps. Ferris Holiday, title of his talk is No, I Don't Know Where to Buy Weed. Please welcome him to the stage.
Hey, yo, Dreadlock! Where the weed at? I swear to God, you guys, if I had a nickel for every time some stranger on the street yelled at me, yo, Dreddy, where the weed? I'd have enough money to go to the weed store and buy up enough for all of y'all. Swear to God, this is part of my life. I used to work with Seattle's Union Gospel Mission, right? So most of the time I would spend, right, come on, you can give it up for those folks. So most of the time was spent running around through the community with interns, either that I was speaking life into, just trying to spend time with them, right? And I see this dude on the street who I know. Sorry, Mom, if y'all are watching this. But he goes, yo, Ferris! And I'm like, shit. Where the weed at? So one, he knows I smoke weed. One, he knows I smoke weed. He knows I know where to find it. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn it. And what do, right? Any uncomfortable moment in y'all's life, I lied. I was like, man, I don't smoke weed. Come on, Tim, you know that. Get the fuck out of here. Right? And I catch one of my boys over there giving me side eye like, lie. So part of my job is I traveled around the country and I would go speak at conferences, right? 5,000, 10,000 people get to hang out with them. We're talking like Britney Spears microphones, jumbotrons, because if I ain't big enough, put my ass on a 30-foot screen. One time I was out in Richmond, Virginia, and I was hanging out at a conference there, met a bunch of folks, and they come up to me, and we're talking about the work that our communities are doing inside of the gospel community, outside of the gospel community with our houseless and our homeless friends, working with our friends who are women, transitioned away from sex trafficking, like the shit people should talk about, am I right? So we get to the end of the conversation, I look at homie, and I'm like, yo, dude, this is great, let's go get a drink, and he goes, we Christian, we don't drink. And I was like, this guy's gonna lose his goddamn mind when I go smoke a cigarette in a second. So here I am, right? 3,000 miles from home, talking about the gospel community, talking about the gospel movement, and I unfortunately invited somebody into my life to look at me and say, you don't look like a Christian. you look like you know where to get weed. I was like, hell yeah, I do. I got the app on my phone. So 2 things, right? 2 points I'm going to go ahead and seal home here real quick. We have an Ignite Seattle superstar in the house. His name's Brian Zug right over here. He gave a talk, literally, this man had to give a talk titled, How to Be a Christian Without Being a Dick, because somebody had to do it. Right now, we're in a time where ain't nobody got time for that. Inside the gospel community, outside the gospel community, nobody got time to be a dick. Also, fuck, because I want to. I'm not one of those Christians that's going to sit up here and talk about hellfire, brimstone. The political community is doing that enough. And by the way, from the mouth of a Libyan, that's another talk. Second point I got for y'all tonight is I fully believe that the gospel community is part of an inclusive community, not an exclusive community. We are a community of people who are not building up walls no matter who the fuck thinks somebody's gonna pay for it. We're opening the door and saying, homie, same side, same city, same love. R.I.P. Sonics, right? They were, for most of you guys who aren't from here, which is also not me, they were a baseball team that we lost. Now, there's a story in the gospel narrative of Jesus. We have this man named Jesus, and we have this Samaritan woman that they see on the street, right? At the time, they're totally racially divided. People where Jesus was from don't talk to people like this Samaritan woman. In the gospel narrative, we see Jesus going first and being like, yo, fuck racial division. I don't care where you're from. I care where you're at. Whatever labels of shame, insecurities, disappointments that people feel, we see this gospel narrative character, Jesus, being like, I ain't a dick. Yo, I actually wait until the day that I get to run into my homie Tim again, right? Hey, yo, dreadlock guy. And be like, yo, homie, hashtag. Right around the corner. They got some good deals right about now. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night.
Don't know what to say. I like that. I'm happy about that. That's good. That's good. So for our last speaker, I got to set you up a little bit here. We didn't design this whole night to be biologically centric. There are a lot of talks about bodies and whatnot. But it is interesting about diversity because the word shit has come up many times tonight in all different sorts of meanings and uses and ways. And this last talk will add to that diversity. So, our last speaker tonight, Andrew Ho, is going to talk about why we stopped eating the nasty shit. Please welcome him to the stage.
So why and when did Americans stop eating the nasty shit? And how do certain food items become known by most Americans as nasty? Food that's eaten throughout the world, such as pig uterus, and pig ears, and chicken feet, and ram testicles. Food that Americans once ate. I'm going to tell you a story about American cuisine and how it's been shaped by political intrigue, economic brinksmanship, and our social anxieties. And I hope this story will inspire you to try more of the nasty shit. Let's start with the colonial period. So white people moved to the New World, and at first they're starving. They're so fucking hungry, they're willing to eat anything, including each other. 18th century, trade routes are established within the British Empire, so now people have options. And Americans, especially in the North, are favoring British Old World cuisine over indigenous ingredients. So they're importing like rum from the British Caribbean or tea from Britain. Well, the Brits started taxing the rum and the tea, and they soon learned that when you fuck with people's alcohol and caffeine supply, there's going to be a revolution. Revolutionaries, of course, they boycotted British goods, and instead of rum, they started drinking whiskey, and instead of tea, they started drinking coffee, which is why you drink coffee. Independence achieved, so now the U.S. can trade outside of the British Empire, so American cooks have a greater access to wider range of ingredients. The U.S. is also expanding westward, so they need more white people. I mean white people to populate newly conquered lands. And there's so much land that they're bringing in white people they don't really like Irish Catholics and Italians and Slavs and Eastern European Jews. And they're bringing with them all sorts of culinary traditions and ingredients from the New World. So by the 1924, Americans are eating all sorts of nasty shit, weird shit, redneck food, European peasant food, and soul food. It's all there. That's what Americans are eating. And the American diet reflects the diverse population and its vast lands. 1924 also marks, in an effort to whiten or to assimilate the undesirable whites, the end of liberal immigration policies and the beginning of the modern kitchen. So refrigeration considerably reduces prestige items such as beef, so that Americans are trading horse meat, liver, and gizzards for hamburgers and steak. It's also when the American government started getting involved in telling Americans what to eat, how to cook, and what not to eat. So that by 1980, Americans are trying to eat like the Jetsons would. They're eating tang and white bread and margarine and made of shit that I cannot pronounce, okay? And, and the American palate has been narrowed so much so that they can't enjoy anything much more than hamburgers and pizza and hot dogs. American cuisine had become a disaster. The Japanese, not Julia Child, saved American cuisine. In the 1980s, the Japanese are on a roll, right? So they come to America to do business, and they bring their chefs with them. And the Americans eating with them are trying food they never had before, like chicken gizzards and beef tongue and, oh my God, raw fish, which was a big fucking deal back then, right? Nobody ate raw fish. You were told to never eat raw fish, and then they were doing it. And for some, that was an exhilarating experience. Emboldened by trying nasty shit, a new type of foodie emerged. And trying nasty shit became a legitimate hobby that was now fueled by the Food Network, okay? Where chefs were introducing Americans to all sorts of weird, new ingredients from across the nation, around the world, and from the past. And now Americans have developed a new palate, and they're eating new foods like never before. And the new American chef wants to show the world that there's more to American food than just McDonald's and KFC. The point is, eating well has less to do with what we eat and more to do with how we explore what's possible to eat. And perhaps the best way to build a vibrant and spirited cuisine is to expand and challenge rather than accept and limit our palates and imagination. Thank you very much. And if you want to know more about us, go to foodyapp.com, foodyapp.com. There's the original article. Thank you.
Okay, before you go, a couple things. Won't take more than a couple seconds, maybe a minute. First, I'd like to ask all of the organizers, all the people behind the scenes who make all this work, to stand up, please. Larry, Brian, Stephen, Randy. They make this all work. If you are a speaker tonight, please stand up. Every speaker, get another round of applause. If you enjoyed what you saw, they worked really hard for that. Three last things. Number one, submissions are open. If you're watching tonight, you're a little like, why didn't they talk about X? Why is there no talk about Y? It's up to you. Submit that talk. Submissions are open. Go to our website. I don't know what you said, but I will pretend it's not important because you yelled it out and I couldn't understand it. Point number two, don't heckle me when I'm trying to remember 4 or 5 things. Because it'll just take longer. It doesn't suit you. It doesn't serve you well. 3, want volunteers. You don't want to speak, but you're like, this is cool. Go to our website, volunteer form. I'd like to help. Click on that. Go there. Point number 3, if you brought a drink, a beverage, a thing, please take it with you. Help us clean up. And lastly, if you like tonight, tweet about it, Facebook about it, tell your friends about it so we can keep this going and continue this tradition. Thank you all for coming. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. Good night.